This is the X-Zone Broadcast Network, broadcasting worldwide on broadcast affiliates and satellite program providers, including CNN Broadcast Network, Sirius Satellite Network, Star Media, Good News Radio Network, Angel Broadcast Network, Wiki Broadcast Network, and WPBN TV. For more information on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, visit us at www.xzbn.net.
All Hit Radio.
Welcome to the X-Zone, a place where fact is fiction and fiction is reality. Now, here's your host, Rob McConnell.
Welcome to the X-Zone, everyone. My name is Rob McConnell, and we're coming to you live and around the world from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada, on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, the Starcom Radio Network, the Digital Broadcast Network, and the Digital Satellite Network. Worldwide, toll-free, 800-610-7035. Email xzone@xzoneradiotv.com. On all social media sites, X-Zone Radio TV. And our main radio site where you can listen to the X-Zone 724-365, as well as our live feed Monday through Friday from 8 p.m. until midnight, www.xzoneradiotv.com. It's a new week. Welcome, everyone. And my first guest tonight is Lizette Flynn. She is the principal and owner of the Animal's Eye View. She specializes in connecting hearts and bridging dimensions, whether living or in spirit, to other humans, animals, higher selves, guides, and angels. Now, Lizette is an animal communicator, shaman, and Reiki master teacher. Lizette communicates with animals and their guardians so that behavior issues and health issues within the context of that shared relationship can be brought out into the open for healing. Now, she uses her skills as a medium and medical intuitive for animals and humans so that they may become reconnected with their divine self and remove blocks in their lives that may be impeding their life journey. As a shaman, Lizette supports the soul's path in seeking answers to questions about present and past lives. This brings a unique perspective to her services as a spiritual mentor, assisting the soul retrieval when appropriate for both animals and humans, and introducing tools such as shamanic journeying. Lizette is certified in Reiki as a master teacher and also certified as a canine massage therapist. Her website, www.theanimalseyeview.com. And joining me now is Lizette Flynn. And Lizette, welcome to the X-Zone.
Hi, Rob. I'm delighted to be here. Thanks so much for having me today.
The pleasure, my dear, is all ours. Tell us how you started on this fantastic crusade, or this fantastic journey that you're on.
Well, I certainly think that I owe it all to the animals. I was taking some time off of work, probably like 2004, 2005, raising my sons, wanting to get back into the workforce. And so I started volunteering at the local animal shelter. And the really interesting thing was that when I would take animals out on one-on-one visits to different events, things like that, it seemed like there was an extra space or a dimension that would open up, and I could step into that dimension and I could hear things that the animals were sharing with me. So on my path, I think animals certainly were that connecting point for me, and they led the way to animals living as well as animals in spirit, which led the way to people in spirit and people living. So it's really been quite a ride since then.
I have to tell you something, dear. I am an animal lover. I am an animal advocate. Good. I have 3 little girls. Usually they come here to the studio with me, but tonight my wife is off, so she's taking care of the 3 girls at home. But I had the opportunity and the pleasure and the privilege of being the director of communications for the SPCA on a contract basis when the function was to get the awareness of the animal needs to the public. And I did a survey, and I sat and I watched, and I worked with a number of the different people within the SPCA, and it came to me that the focus was always on the wrong aspect. The focus of the SPCA was on the adoption. Here's this cute little puppy who needs a home, and so on and so forth. But the real heroes at any humane shelter or any humane organization are the inspectors who actually go out and do the enforcement, and the volunteers. God bless these people.
That's absolutely, Rob. That's so true. At any shelter facility, most of them, I think, are actually kind of minimally staffed. You have a vet, you might have a director of operations, you're going to have some vet techs, things like that. But the people who really make that a shelter run, I think, who come in, who spend time with the cats, with the dogs, taking dogs for walks, doing all of the enrichment activities, you're absolutely right, are the volunteers. And they all probably are like you and me and adore animals and think they're nothing better than to play with an animal for a little while.
The connection that you talked about, I saw it firsthand on a daily basis, and the connection between animals and humans, whether it's a bird, whether it's a cat, whether it's a guinea pig, whether it's a little Easter bunny, or a puppy, or an old dog that people just abandoned because they're not puppies anymore, they're not cute anymore. This connection, Lizanne, I don't believe very many people actually see it. And I am so happy to have been part and blessed with the opportunity of seeing it firsthand.
I think you're absolutely right. And I think unfortunately, I think sometimes with humans, we fall into probably at least maybe one category of thinking about another sentient being, aka the other animal being on the planet at the end of the leash, in the cage, in the tank, that we happen to be riding in the case of a horse, as something that we are separate from, something that we are apart from, and nothing could be further from the truth. I actually perceive that animals are intuitive guides in physical form on this planet. And so if you look at just almost from a physical basis, some of the things that animals are capable of in their physical form, immense physical transformations. You look at animals that can change the color of their skin. You look at a butterfly. You look at the things that a dog can do, the things that a cat can do, a bird can fly. Humans are pretty earthbound in that regard. And I think we need our animal companions and wild animal relatives to probably shed some light on the other dimensions that are possible to step into. And I think they reside in more than one dimension at one point in time. I think that's part of their magic.
I agree with you. And I believe that so many people put humans at the top of the totem pole. I think we're at the bottom. It's the rest of the animal kingdom, the bird kingdom, and the insect kingdom that are above us. Because you won't see animals fighting over religion. You won't see animals fighting over politics. You won't see animals starting wars for no reason whatsoever. We should take a lesson from the animals, and God help humanity the day that they decide that they have had enough of our crap and they all join forces because we're outnumbered, we will lose hands down.
I think you're absolutely right. And the really interesting thing about animals is that they've retained that sense of collective consciousness that humans, of course, have as well, but we've let our individual consciousness kind of trump the collective consciousness. And animals, they do have an awareness ongoing all of the time that, again, humans, I think somewhere along the line in our evolution, we kind of learned to block out. I do think indigenous peoples, pretty much all of them, every single one of them were shamanistic in nature, that they knew how to connect. And animals have that wonderful web of nature of which humans are also a part. And that's their fallback position. In that web of nature, there are no questions. There is no religion. There are no politics. There just simply is what is on this planet. And that provides, I think, not only a great deal of structure to them, but I think also a great deal of comfort. They don't go around asking questions, how can I become more evolved?
That's right.
Only humans do that.
In your opinion, what is the most important thing any companion animal would like to share with their humans, their family?
I think it's an understanding and an open embrace of you, human, are in a relationship with a sentient being of a different species. Mm-hmm. I'm not human. I'm not going to act the same way as a human acts. I'm not going to act the same way as another dog of the same breed because I'm individual and I have my own unique soul. And so it's leaving behind, I think, that imprint of humanism, if you will, and human behavior, thought patterns, etc., that we kind of thrust onto our animal companions. So it's being willing to be humble enough to look into that mirror that I think our animal companions hold up for us every single day. And just like looking in the mirror sometimes on a bad hair day, it's just like, wow, I'd really rather not look at that. But once you embrace that diversity, that's such rich territory, I think, for both animal as well as for human.
X-Zone Nation, my guest this hour is Lizette Flynn. Her website is www.theanimalseyeview.com. One thing that there is no one on the face of this planet can deny, unless they're brain dead or nearly brain dead, is that animals give us so much in return. They are the, like I was talking about my three little girls that are usually with me. They give unconditional love.
They do all of the time, and that for me is just additional evidence of how they are intuitive guides in physical form on this planet, because you're absolutely right. They, even in cases in, I think, really severe abuse, if you get the animal with the right guardian and the individual that's really going to support that healing process, they're not going to bring it up all the time. They're capable of recovery from some very traumatic situations and are capable of self-healing, I think, in ways that humans are not, because they live in the moment and they don't have the concept of thinking mind to have to power their way through. They just simply are in that place. And that's not to say that they're not highly intelligent and very intuitive, because I think their intelligence and intuitiveness on a scale far surpasses ours. At least it does mine. I always follow the lead of the animal because they're so much better at at so many more things than I am. So they're in charge when I'm connecting with them.
I agree with you. Hats off to you for saying that. Why is it so necessary for us to keep conversation going between our animal companions and ourselves?
Well, I think it's like any other relationship of significance that you have in your life. If you had someone, a very dear friend, a family member, and the only thing that you wanted to talk about them is that thing that they did or that thing that they do that bugs you so much, that's kind of a tough conversation to have without the backdrop of really getting to know them as an individual, really getting to know their preferences, their likes, their dislikes, their lovable little quirks. Mm-hmm. And so to have that kind of ongoing conversation, just like in all other relationships, makes it so much easier to resolve conflicts, reach compromises. If you just kind of bomb in and ask a question about behavior, naturally so, I think, again, most humans would probably protest and say, well, is that the only thing you want to talk to me about? I'm pretty significant in your life. Don't you want to know how I like to spend my time? Don't you want to know what I think about? Don't you want to know what my perspective is? So it's a building relationship piece, which, again, brings back the concept of being in a relationship with a sentient being of a different species. We don't have to travel to Mars to get that done. We can do that right here on planet Earth.
Relationships require building, working, and of course communication. I'd just like to share with you a case that I was witness to with the inspectors. They went in to investigate an animal cruelty case. Now, here in Canada, inspectors or investigators with the SPCA are law enforcement officers. They have the power of arrest. They have the power to seize. They have the power to issue warrants. They're the police officers or the guardians of our animals. And this one animal had been abused. My heart just went out to this little animal. And yet, even though this little animal had been abused, there's no two ways about it. When the inspectors came in, what did the little animal do? Went to the person who abused it.
You know, it's stories like that you just, that to me is the epitome of how magical and how mystical animals are, because you're absolutely right. They will go to that individual and say, I forgive you. Yeah. And even maybe on some level, and I understand why this happened. I so want to help you with this. Please let me heal you. Please let me work with you. Let's heal together. Yeah. They just, again, they far surpass most humans, at least that I've met, as far as being able to step back into that space of forgiveness, because their heart is always open, always open.
And you can see it in their eyes. Like
definitely,
like my little girls when they're with me, and they know that when I'm working, they have to go into the green room. They have their little, each one has a little bed that they go to, and afterwards, it's like, hey, Dad's finished work, we can play. or at home, they know when my wife is going to be coming home. She's a nurse. She works shift work. But they know 15 to 20 minutes ahead of time that Mommy's coming home. They wait for her at the top of the stairs.
Yep.
You know, how intuitive, based on your expertise, do you think animals are?
I think they are as intuitive as, well, the words that are coming are perhaps, I would say, angelic beings. Or any other beings of pure light and energy. They just happen to have physical form on this planet. It's so interesting to me sometimes when I work with people, and occasionally some, relatively delicate and or personal information will come up, say, for instance, about love lives or relationships at work or what's happening at work or any of those sorts of things. And we forget that our animals are with us 24/7 in energy. Their language is energy. Yes, they have physical form, but like with some humans, when we get fixated on physical form, we miss those energy vibrations. Animals don't miss the energy vibrations. They read them and they interpret them all of the time. So, where a behaviorist, an animal behaviorist might say, well, animals, it's not possible for them to be able to tell time, et cetera, et cetera. I guess I would disagree with that respectfully, because they are able to sense our energy coming closer to them. Shifts in energy, for instance, with your wife, her shift is completed at work. She's on her way home. Her mood probably starts to lighten. She thinks about being able to see you. She thinks about being able to be with your companion animals. And that's just an automatic, like, flashing beacon to animals. And they're like, oh, look, energy is shifting. Let's go here to where the energy is shifting and I can meet this energy.
Exactly.
Because it's so happy.
Wow. Do animals have soul paths like humans do?
Absolutely. Oftentimes I think people are under the impression, we go to a shelter and we choose an animal. It's not really that way. The animal definitely has chosen us and probably, perhaps even shared lifetimes with us, past lifetimes. I know certainly of situations where an animal was, one story in particular, friends of mine owned a dog walking business in California, went to pick up a dog. The guardian had transition, passed away within the last couple of days. The dog was there. His will stipulated that she needed to be returned to the ASPCA shelter, the local shelter there.
Right.
And my friends were not sure about this, and they said, oh, we'd really like to have her find a home, and we would really like for her not to have to go back to the shelter, because for most humans, shelters are not a positive thing. The image that this lovely dog showed me was of a younger couple. They had 2 small children. There was a white picket fence. It could have been metaphorical, but it was also definitely very true. And I said, she's pretty persistent about needing to go back to the shelter so that she can find the next family that she's supposed to be with. They did return her to the shelter. Sure enough, a week and a half later, I get an email in the mail with a picture of, guess who found her new family? So animals' vision and their intuitiveness about life paths connected with evolution of their soul path and awakenings with different humans, which brings us back to the intuitive guide part, I think far surpasses what we can even imagine in this dimension, that they do choose specifically those humans whose soul path matches up most closely with theirs. And I guess you could call it maybe an assignment that they're given of, okay, I'm going to come back to Earth again. I'm going to find this particular human or group of humans, and these are the awakenings that we're going to have together. Granted, they may not be, from our perspective, the most positive of awakenings, but they're definitely awakenings for all the souls involved.
So you believe that the animals, like I have been told by so many people on the show, that we make a contract when we decide to come back to Earth or wherever we go to inhabit a body, to experience or to finish business. Animals do the same.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And even more so, they're also more cognizant of past life connections and have access to that. What for us sometimes is unconscious energy from soul, from lifetime to lifetime to lifetime. They have access to that unconscious soul information of past lifetimes, and I think will sometimes actively seek out those souls with whom they've had previous lifetimes. And those bonds you can't mistake in energy dimension. There's a depth to them. There's a richness to them. And sometimes if the human is particularly aware, they will get a sensation of having been with this particular animal before in a lifetime.
How important is body language or our body in relationship with other species?
I think it is important, first of all, to understand how deeply an animal connects with his or her body is as important for a human to connect deeply to our bodies as well. To understand that we don't necessarily need to have these love-hate relationships with our physical forms. Animals don't have that kind of love-hate relationship. They have it simply is what it is relationship. And to be able to physically understand and to emotionally and mentally, I think, understand that relationship with their physical form, I think, again, it holds up that mirror for us of how would it be if we simply had joy and movement like most animals have? How would it be if we didn't think about what size we were? How would it be if we didn't think how tall we were or whether or not we might be considered funny looking by the other animal species on the planet? Right. Animals don't have those kinds of thoughts. They simply have this is my body. It is my vehicle on this planet for my soul. And I'm going to take very good care of my body. They are continually pointed toward health and vibrancy, whereas humans can get kind of far off that path at times, I think.
I would imagine that our ego plays a big part in that. We're animals, and other species that we share the planet with don't have egos.
I would agree that they definitely have personality.
Yes.
and temperaments, as you might have noticed the difference probably between the 3 dogs that you have. And so very unique that way, but most definitely animals are the first ones to narc on themselves and say, for instance, if it's a behavior issue, to say, oh, yeah, I have this real problem with barking, or I have this real problem with not using the litter box, or I really wish I could change this one thing about myself, and there's always an and, and I need my guardian's help with this. They never try to power through it themselves because they understand that everything they're here to learn in their animal experience is directly connected to the human that they've chosen to mate with, if you will, on a soul level in this lifetime.
What happens after this lifetime with our companions? Where do they go when they pass?
What they've shown me, Rob, is that, and I know what they've shown me is that there are other dimensions available to them. And for an animal, quite often, transition or passing on, crossing over, whatever words you want to use, is very much like walking from one room into the other. They are always forward looking and forward sensing. For humans, sometimes I think there's fear associated when we contemplate perhaps our own death or the death of loved ones.
Yes.
Animals, they don't necessarily have that fear. They certainly are cognizant and aware of the bonds of love of other animal companions and other humans in a lifetime, and I think that's always difficult for them, but only from the standpoint of, oh gosh, this has been really wonderful, and I need to leave you now. And of course, they sense the sometimes guilt, the grief, the sorrow that's coming forth from the other animals and the other humans. But they definitely step into other energy dimensions. In our human verbiage, we might call that heaven, we might call that other dimensions. I'm not sure they necessarily have a name for it. When I connect with animals in that other dimension, they sometimes call it the other place. And the really interesting thing is it's kind of structured the way that would make that particular individual animal happy. For instance, you might have, for a dog that really likes to run, you might have lots and lots of green meadows and streams and things like that. For an animal that just wants to sit by the fire, you might have this like perfect cozy little cottage. It's a little bit of a nebulous construct, if you will, because it's never really the same way twice when I step into that dimension with them.
We have to take our news coming up in a couple of minutes. One of the stories that I'd like to share with you in the Exonation was one of our companions, one of our kids, as we call them, had lived a very happy life. But unfortunately, as time aged with her, she developed cancerous tumors throughout. She was a little Shih Tzu. And the time had come where she was in so much pain that the vet said, the humane thing to do at this point is to let her go. Well, my wife couldn't take the pain and the grief. She sat in the car, and I held Maxie. I didn't want Maxie to go alone. I didn't want Maxie to feel as if she had been abandoned after all this time. So I held her as the vet aided her to her crossing. At the time where she left this reality, I could smell roses. and the vet looked at me and she said, "Are you all right, Rob?" I said, I smell roses. And she said, "This happens quite often." and I was sad, but I wasn't sad.
Yeah.
And I walked to the car, and my wife is just bawling up a storm. And she looked at me. She says, "Why aren't you crying?" I said, "You're not going to believe what happened." So I shared it with her, and she said, "Maxie's in a better place."
Yes.
And I said, "Yes." And the vet told me that this was a way somehow that they let their family know that they're okay.
Absolutely. They're so good at that. And I have a hunch that if you think about roses and if you give roses to someone, that's the epitome of love for a human. So it was like she was offering you this lovely bouquet of roses as a symbol of her love for you and your wife. Yeah. That's a wonderful story. I love it.
You and I have to take our news break. Thanks so much for being with us, Lizanne. It's great talking to you and sharing this information with the X-Zone Nation. We'll be back after we take this break with some advertisers and our newsmakers right here on the X-Zone. Lizette Flynn is our special guest, www.theanimalseyeview.com. My name is Rob McConnell. This is the X-Zone, a place where people dare to believe and dare to be heard, Monday through Friday from 8 p.m. Eastern until midnight. Right here on the X-Zone Broadcast Network, the Digital Broadcast Network, the Digital Satellite Network, and of course our great friends at the Starcom Radio Network. Speaking about great friends at the Starcom Radio Network, Ed Till, Monday through Friday, 9 a.m. until 5 p.m. Listen to what radio is supposed to sound like. Lizanne and I will be back on the other side of this break. Don't go away. What if Jesus came back now and insisted that we listen to him? How would the world be different if Christians really followed the Gospels? For 2,000 years, we've been practicing a religion. Now it's finally time to get it right. Read Liberating Jesus, new from Roberta Grimes. Meet the Jesus you never knew. Roberta uses afterlife evidence and biblical analysis to prove that Jesus is exactly right. Learning the lessons that he came to teach is the reason we are born at all. Roberta says he has come back now to insist that we actually listen to him so we can begin to use his teachings to unite and transform the world. Liberating Jesus on Amazon, October 1st, and then wherever books are sold. Jesus has the answers, and it's not too late. Roberta blogs and answers questions at robertagrimes.com.
The scientist and the mystic have been on an age-old, relentless search with one thing in common. They seek truth. Their paths converge in the 40,000-year-old practice of shamanism, an ancient science delving to the quantum level of life, facilitating healing, manifestation, and evolution. I'm Gwilda Wiyaka, the founder and director of Path Home Shamanic Arts School, a unique Colorado State-certified occupational school, training shamanic practitioners and teachers. We also provide classes for empowering personal lives through shamanism. Our certification classes are in week-long segments enabling international participation, and online classes and long-distance shamanic healing sessions are available. Come discover the science of magic in the limitless world of shamanism. www.findyourpathhome.com.
The Carl O. Helvey Holistic Cancer Foundation is a new nonprofit foundation that focuses on a holistic approach to cancer that includes physical, mental, spiritual, and political aspects. Cancer education, research, and care are provided for all types of cancer patients. You can listen to interviews with cancer doctors and survivors and read research on holistic aspects of cancer at www.holisticcancerfoundation.com. That's www.holisticcancerfoundation.com.
Wouldn't you love to know the secret to everything? Well then, meet Dr. Kimberly McGeorge and her cutting-edge breakthrough knowledge that combines science with possibility. Dr. Kimberly brings real-life answers and healing to those open to alternative solutions. She teaches solution-based programs and classes that will change all areas of your life forever. Specializing in conscious creation, intuitive readings, and energy medicine, you can rapidly shift health, relationships, business, and money and abundance challenges quickly. Receive her best-selling book, Secret to Everything, at no cost by going to secrettoeverything.com/X-Zone. That's right, transformation can start now. Just go to secrettoeverything.com/X-Zone and receive Dr. Kimberly's book for free.
Ever wondered if your advertising dollar is really working for you? If your ad would have been here, you and more than 4 million people would be listening to it right now. Contact ads at xzoneradiotv.com.
Little children aren't the only ones afraid of the dark. Millions of soldiers return from war zones with PTSD, anger, frustration, fear, and loneliness, much of which surfaces during the darkness of the night. You have the chance to change the lives of these American heroes. Songs and Stories for Soldiers.us provides free MP3 players for these men and women. With a list of 3 million songs in 16 different styles, 100,000 audiobooks, and 30,000 old-time radio programs, every veteran can find something to soothe and comfort them at no cost. All our players contain an 8-hour audio program designed to help veterans fall asleep. With 1,500 plus vets now participating, it's our goal to deliver 10,000 audio players this year. Go to our website at songsandstoriesforsoldiers.us. Help us help a veteran make it through the night.
Welcome back, everyone. Lizette Flynn is our special guest this hour. www.theanimalseyeview.com. Thanks very much for being with us tonight, Lizette. Great talking to you. And I hope that we're opening up some hearts out there tonight, Lizette. How do the animals communicate with each other? And what do they think about humans in general?
Well, that's a bit of a loaded question. Just kidding. I think, again, certainly I think they communicate physically in a sense with eye movement, hackles on the back of a dog being raised, the tail, cats, ears, tails. They definitely use their physical form. But I think probably they start out with telepathic communication. Just watching two dogs meet for the first time or two different species meet for the first time, certainly it's tentative, but there's so much more going on energetically and vibrationally than I think we can process as humans, because that's not our natural way of being, but it is most definitely for animals. And I think, Rob, it's interesting because I think companion animals might have a different view of us than, say, for instance, our wild animal relatives. I think that our wild animal relatives, because they have that collective consciousness, I don't think it's necessarily us against them. There's, at this point in time, at least there was, a very popular TV show called Zoo, and it was written by James Patterson, where the premise was that animals take over the world, which I'm not necessarily.
Great show.
Did you watch that show?
Yeah, we're watching it now. As a matter of fact, well, I don't mean right now, but it's on our networks now.
Okay, and so I don't necessarily. I'm not a big fan of the premise because I don't think it's necessarily true that animals are going to overtake the world and have it out for humans, and that it's the whole predator-prey kind of a thing. I do believe that with some of the higher frequencies coming into the planet, animals, of course, because they have skin-to-skin contact with the planet at all times. In other words, they don't wear shoes. Most of them don't. And so they're very energetic and electrical bodies, just like we have energetic and electrical bodies, connect with the earth all of the time. And so they've been getting, I think, information about these higher frequencies coming in for probably years and years and years and years. I think they would like nothing more than to invite our species into the party, if you will, and to transcend and to incorporate higher dimensions into our third dimension. But they are aware, just like we all are aware as well, we have free will on this planet. And so it's very important, I think, at this point in time to be making those choices that actually align us closer with how animals are, as far as collective consciousness being first and individual consciousness being second. I think that they actually have some hope for us. I do think that from time to time, most definitely, and I think these messages are increasing. When I say to people, if a wild animal crosses your path, that's not a mistake, that's not a coincidence. That's that animal and the energy related to that animal having a very specific message for you. And those contacts, as I say, are increasing. So it feels like they're extending a paw, if you will, or a wing, or a fin, whatever they have to extend on a physical level, to invite us to step into this other dimension with them where they've been for a long time.
Why is it crucial that we do our own internal work in relation to other species? Why is this so important? Is it a matter of getting along with other species in order to form a better Earth, or are there some other reasons that are behind this?
Oh, I think that's entirely accurate to say that it's about the evolution of this planet and all of the beings on this planet. I don't perceive that we were given, first of all, the physical forms, whether that's animal, plant, crystal, what have you, on this planet. The design for all of them, even for the smallest insect, is pretty darn miraculous in my perspective. And so as soul, what's the word I'm looking for? Like soul, not necessarily drop in, but soul visitor to this planet. I think the whole point is to evolve the soul through whatever experience you have, whether that's an animal experience, a plant experience, a crystal experience, an insect experience, a snake experience, etc. And so I do think that, well, and again, this is free will and choice. And so you can simply not let the situations that are part of any lifetime transform you. But I think that is their deliberate purpose, to step into those situations that we might find challenging and to allow them to transform us so that our soul can continue on its evolutionary path.
I don't know which way to ask you this question, so I'm going to ask you this question both ways. Why are animals here on this planet? Second way of asking it, why are humans here on this planet?
I can answer the second part probably easier than the first. I think that humans were here originally to be stewards. We were here to be guardians, in the best sense of the word, of all of the resources that Earth has to offer to us. And this, of course, extends far beyond animal beings themselves, but to plant resources, to mineral resources, to the resources in the ocean, to pretty much every single element on the planet. I think the souls that chose to come to this particular planet had in their evolutionary, on their soul path, a stepping into and a stepping up onto a platform where through their actions and through their human experience, they can become the best stewards possible of this planet. Animals, quite honestly, as I said earlier, I do think that they are intuitive guides in physical form to help us with this task at hand. And And I think that if humans were just kind of plunked down onto this planet without anybody to look after or to take care of, I'm not sure that was necessarily the design of this planet. I think that I'm not necessarily fond of tests either, and saying that this was a test. I'm going to say it was an opportunity again for these souls, collective souls, every single being on this planet in human form throughout hundreds of generations, to continually make that a better process. And I think in some cases we've really surpassed ourselves, and in other cases we have fallen far short of the mark.
You said animals could be our intuitive guides. Could animals also be angels?
Definitely. They can be angels. They can be beings of light from other planets such as Arcturus, Sirius, Pleiades, Vega, a number of other different star systems. And it's interesting because I often get the question, for those people who are interested in reincarnation, can I come back as a dog? Can I come back as a cat? And do animals come back as humans? And the more I do this, actually, I think, and again, from our human perspective, I'm sure there might be some people who would say, well, I would never choose that.
Right.
But I do perceive that the soul path of an animal is at a different point on its evolutionary path than, say, for instance, the soul of someone who has chosen to be human in a lifetime. And I do perceive animals to be the better part of most beings on this planet, without a doubt.
You know, I've talked to many people who have been with people at the time of crossing. And so many of the people who are crossing are greeted by their companions to help them make the journey across.
Yes.
And when you talk to some people, they look at you as if you've got 3 heads, and one head has blue hair, the other has orange, and the other has green, and they think you're totally whacked. But all of these people say the same thing. It has to be true.
And that's my experience as well, Rob, is that it's so interesting because even if the animals didn't know each other in a lifetime, and even if the humans didn't know the animals in a lifetime, if they say, for instance, we're all connected through you, and the animal companion of yours, that Maxie, I think it was, that transitioned earlier, perhaps your parents, perhaps loved ones, good friends that had transitioned either before Maxie or after Maxie, that when you transition, you are that original connecting point for all of those love bonds and soul bonds in your human experience. So it's not uncommon at all for me to see relatives along with animal companions, again, who didn't know each other, didn't share an actual physical lifetime, but that soul bond and that heart bond is quite strong, and most definitely they serve as welcoming committee. And sometimes if it's going to be a difficult transition, either for the human or for the animal, in whatever way, there's usually a lovely reaching out from that dimension as much as they can to form this lovely bridge of energy over which that soul, animal or human, can transition. It's such a privilege for me to be able to step into those dimensions and to perceive this experience. I often say that I would love for all of my clients to be able to experience that, because then any doubts that they had about an afterlife, if you will, or will I be with my favorite animal companion when I transition, all of those doubts would be laid to rest.
I read in your bio that you do soul retrieval, and I would imagine this is for people, but has there ever been a time when you've been asked to do a soul retrieval for a companion?
Oh, the very first time. It was a very unique experience. I had my own experience with soul retrieval probably 3 years ago, and maybe 2 weeks or so before working with this particular animal companion. He was having a lot of behavior issues, not eating well. He had been rescued from a shelter, that had rescued him from living on the streets, etc. And the guardian and I were a little stumped about what it was that we were going to be able to do to turn this little guy around. And halfway through the session, there was this outburst of, he showed me a cardboard box. It was a wet cardboard box. He had obviously been living this wet cardboard box, if you can imagine, on the street. And his words were, well, I could have died out there. And in that moment, because I had already had my own experience with soul retrieval, I thought, there's been some trauma. And just as quickly, I felt myself kind of backing up from this and saying internally, well, no, wait a minute. I haven't been quote unquote trained in this, etc. And then I heard my own guides and probably this dog's guides come in and say, trust us and trust yourself. And so I did, and we stepped in that space together. And it was absolutely really wonderful to return that soul piece to this individual, because when we do that, then there's a completeness of soul that reverberates out through physical form. This dog's behavior issues disappeared. He began eating so much better. And not surprisingly, in doing this soul retrieval process, animals are much better at it than humans are, because again, they don't have the fear to get through necessarily. They don't have the thinking of, well, what if, what will happen? I don't want to do this. This feels uncomfortable. They just are incredibly courageous and step into that space because they want to be whole again. For them to not have a whole and intact soul is not a feeling of comfort for an animal, and they very willingly do that process.
Lizanne, as a shaman, how could you help a companion using the knowledge that a shaman has? How would you use it on a companion?
For an animal companion, the first thing, Rob, I would look for would probably be previous trauma. Mm-hmm. And to describe the symptoms of not perhaps having an intact soul, and let's face it, we all have trauma in our lives. We have big trauma, little trauma. That's life on this planet for all beings. The kind of key is how the soul perceives that trauma and the depth of that trauma. For some people, it can be, and for some animals, it can be actual physical abuse, emotional abuse. For some people, the trauma can be being in the middle of the most perfect dream you've ever had and having the phone ring and having you get jarred, physically jarred out of that experience. And so for not having complete soul, there's a feeling of feeling slightly out of body, slightly spacey. There's not that kind of what I would call bone deep connection with physical form, that there's just kind of a slight separateness there. But for animals, when they willingly say, for instance, in the cases of abuse, right, then that brings in a concept called soul theft, where the essence of soul is deliberately taken by another individual. And so in what a shaman refers to as non-ordinary reality, we step into that dimension, we call forth the individual, the perpetrator, if you will. There is an exchange of soul essence, and then the animal gets the opportunity to welcome that soul essence home, saying, nothing like that will ever happen to you again. It's safe to come home. And then, of course, throughout the physical being, there are reverberations of energy, because this is an actual recalibration of very tangible energy, and so the body has to readjust to it. That process takes like maybe 3 to 5 days. Sometimes it takes a little less. Animals take even less time than that. But it's a dramatic reset in moving forward and leaving that trauma completely in the past.
You know, our time is nearly up for tonight, Lizanne. I want to thank you so much for joining us tonight. It's been a great pleasure talking to you. What is your final message for the X-Zone Nation tonight?
Oh, gosh, let's see. I would have to say, from the animal's point of view, it is come closer, get to know us better, embrace who we are, and be one with us in compassion for the entire rest of the planet. And if you think about operating from that point, that's a pretty cool place to be.
It is. Lizanne, let our listeners know how if they can find out more about what you do and how they can contact you.
They can contact me, Rob, through my website, which is www.theanimalsiview.com. They can find me on Facebook and Twitter under the handle Lizette Flynn. I also have a radio show on Fridays, 10 a.m. Pacific time on 12radio.com. And my shows are archived on that network, and they're also archived on the Speak Up Talk network. And that's where people can find me.
Thanks a lot, Lizanne. Take care of yourself.
Thank you, Rob. It's been a wonderful pleasure.
Pleasure's been all ours, dear. Bye-bye now. Exonation, once again, www.theanimalsiview.com. When I come back from this commercial break and the news, we're going to be getting back to things that go bump in the night, the strange, the weird, the bizarre, just like we do every night, every hour here on the X Zone, because this is a place where people dare to believe and dare to be heard. And I'll be back on the other side as we continue, right here from our broadcast center in Hamilton, Ontario, Canada. My name is Rob McConnell. This is the X Zone. Don't go away.